everyone. Thank you for your patience. My name is Jim Wonderman. I'm the president and CEO of the Bay Area Council. And you know, I think most of you should, that we're the business group that represents many of the largest employers in California here in the Bay Area region. They represent almost 5 million workers and earn almost $2 trillion worldwide. So it's a very significant organization representing this region. Led by our vice chair, Janet Lampkin, to the governor's right. She's the California market president of the Bank of America, which is where we stand. A large number of our members of our executive committee were able to join together today for a tough conversation, a very focused conversation with Governor Brown about the future of the great state of California. I want to announce now that the Bay Area Council is offering our support to Governor Brown. We're very proud of this for what he's trying to do to fix the state. And I want to explain our reasoning for so doing.
That means you support putting on the ballot.
Putting on the ballot. Yeah. So let me restate. There are a number of measures the governor is urging be placed on the ballot in a special June election, and the Bay Area Council supports doing that, and they do so wholeheartedly. To talk with the governor this afternoon is a tough conversation, but I'll tell you this, the experience that we had was profoundly refreshing. And you know why it was refreshing? Because it was an honest conversation. And I thank you, Governor, for your honesty. I'm reminded of a quote today by Thomas Merton, and I thought our former seminarian governor might appreciate and enjoy. Merton said, "The biggest human temptation is to settle for too little." For the past decade, California's budgeting has been what I would call a childish exercise. The budget's violated every principle of fiscal responsibility by conjuring up billions of dollars in sham revenues and pushed hard decisions off until next year, and then next year again. Well, next year always came, and then the trickery continued right along with it. Treating Californians like this, surrendering to the temptation to hide the truth, it's frankly childish, and what Thomas Merton would call certainly settling for too little. I'd add that it's been destructive to the common good, and it's shaken California's image, and from a business perspective, our competitiveness. Well, there's good news. An adult has entered the room, and his name is Jerry Brown. For his honesty, his maturity, and treating Californians like adults, Jerry Brown deserves our respect, and he deserves our support. He's put forward an honest budget that blends painful cuts with painful tax extensions. The Bay Area Council endorses this and will help put this package on the ballot for the voters to decide. That's the way it should be. To be clear, we don't like everything in this proposal. Our members don't believe in higher taxes. They run counter to expanding businesses and jobs in the state. But on balance, we need to be part of the solution. We have to be part of the solution as business leaders, and we support the governor's proposal overall. And we urge other business groups in California and all Californians to do the same. In the same spirit of resisting the temptation to settle for too little, as Merton described, we cannot just look to solving the budget and declare this work to be done. And so we strongly ask you, Governor, and your colleagues on both sides of the aisle to work with us on the coming tsunami of unfunded public employee pensions and retirement benefits which are unsustainable, on clearing out the regulatory underbrush that hampers growth and prevents economic transformation, and finally, to work with us to secure long-term real budget reform. We cannot repeat the mistakes of the past and push these things off until next year and next year after that either. The time is now. The day of reckoning has arrived, and the only way through it is with the spirit of shared sacrifice and grown-up behavior. On behalf of the Bay Area Council, standing behind us, Governor Brown, you can count on our support. Thank you for leading us in these difficult but perhaps very refreshing times. Ladies and gentlemen, the Governor of California, Edmund G. Brown, Jr.
Well, this is a very important endorsement for this package of cuts and tax extensions and realignment. I'm supporting a very clear three-point plan. Realign government, put more authority and funding at the local level, closer to the people, cut drastically, in many cases, our budget, which does not have enough revenue, and then extend the taxes for 5 years. We're also looking at pension reform, at regulatory reform, and other areas that members of the legislature and the business community have raised. I have an open mind to all these things, and over the next week, I'll be spending a lot of time with Republicans and Democrats, shuttling between the two distinct groups to put together a package that will commend itself to the voters. So that's my goal. This is a very important building block in finally putting our budget crisis behind us. And that's exactly what my goal is. If we can put the cuts and the tax extensions, we'll have a balanced budget going forward. Any questions?
Governor Brown, can you get into some detail about the kind of pension reform you would include, and in particular whether you would change pensions for current employees as a little of your as recommended?
It's very difficult to change pension rules for existing employees. There's vested rights under the Constitution, although there are some lawsuits that will test the limits of that. There are increasing contributions. There's changes for new employees. And we're considering all of those. But I don't shut the door on anything. I'm open to suggestions, but they have to be able to win enough support to get through the legislature.
Governor, where do you stand on getting the tax extensions on the ballot? Where do you stand with getting the tax extensions on the ballot with Republicans? I know you set a deadline for next week where you wanted to have that set.
We stand that there's some interest. There's also fear and some differences, and we're working through those. I think we have a good chance, but I'm not ready to predict victory yet. We have struggled, but I've got a very solid plan that's balanced. And if it is not acceptable, either because the Republicans will not allow the people to vote on it, or if the people in their wisdom choose not to have the tax extensions, then we will have $25 billion in cuts. That I promise.
With so much still up in the air, do you feel like Thursday is still a reasonable deadline?
Thursday, they're close to it. So we're getting close to the deadline because we want to get the vote in time for a budget by June 15th.
Governor, when you were running, you said, when you were running for office, you said that those with the biggest belts, you tuck them in first. Specifically, what sacrifices are you asking the wealthiest Californians and the business community, the wealthiest corporations to make?
Well, we're continuing the income taxes that exist, and I've made the judgment that instead of pursuing a change in the tax code and asking people to vote in new taxes, that I would ask the people to extend what is. So whatever balance, whatever equity, whatever distribution of taxes have been in the law, that's what will continue for the next 5 years, with all the equity and inequities that applies.
Your auditor, Elaine Howell, apparently asked for a 1-week extension on this.
Yes.
You know what's going on?
I have no idea, but certainly if she can come up with good ideas a week later, that's fine.
Have you looked at what the other suggestions that came to the Road Commission?
Well, we're looking at consolidating agencies. We're looking for a lot of things to try to save money wherever we can.
Governor, can you talk about why the proposed cuts to higher education is necessary, what you thought of all the protests that happened in Berkeley yesterday?
Well, the fact is California is $25 billion in the red. It's been living to some degree in fantasy, at least the people in Sacramento. We have to close the gap. We close the gap either by cutting $25 billion or cutting $12.5 billion and extending some taxes. That's where we are. And these are